Hi, everyone. Welcome to Let's Talk Safe Tech, Cybersecurity for Teens by IBM. We're so excited to have you all here today. Okay, so here's the agenda for today. We're going to start out with some intro questions. We're going to talk about protecting yourself, taking control of your data, careers, and then we're going to actually hear from a panel of experts. So I'm Tara. I'm a product designer at IBM Security Design. I'll be one of your guides today, along with Derek and Bridget. Do you guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Thanks, Tara. Similar to Tara, I'm a product designer on the security team. My name is Derek. Happy to be here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Bridget Pepper, and I'm a program manager for our global solution design team within IBM Security, and I'm really happy to be here today. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you, guys. And then later, we'll be hearing from our panel of experts, Lamore, Richard, and Tone. So to get started, let's ask some questions. Just ask these questions to yourself, please. Do you have a smartphone? Do you shop online? Do you have a social media account? Do you stream movies or TV shows? Do you download apps? If you answer yes to any of those questions, it's time to talk about cybersecurity.
First, let's talk about what cybersecurity is. Cybersecurity is protecting yourself from someone stealing your digital information or from someone pretending to be you online.
So what constitutes digital information?
Digital information is data. And as you'll see here, data is anything that can be used to identify a specific individual. Data can be your name, data can be your address, your email address, your social media posts, and really anything else.
Okay, so let's talk about how you can protect yourself and your data. First, what data are you putting out into the world? Let's consider this scenario. You want to buy something online. Maybe you have a night out with your friends planned and you want to get a cute outfit, or maybe you want to buy or even pre-order the newest video game. So when you want to buy something, you start shopping online. Maybe you know exactly what you're looking for, or you browse around. Once you find something you like, you add it to your cart. And maybe you've shopped with this company before, so you can log into your account or you create a new one. And then you enter your shipping information to ensure that the package gets to your house. And then you enter your credit card information. And voila, you've made a purchase. It's super easy. And even though shopping online is the norm these days, you still put a lot of information out there just to buy a shirt or a cool game. And when you're shopping online, you're sharing your browser history. And when you find something you like, some companies might actually sell that data in order to target ads to you. And when you log into your account, you're sharing your email address. And if the website isn't secure, a hacker can actually record the keystrokes of your password. And when you enter your shipping information, you're sharing your home address. And obviously, when you enter your credit card information, that's financial info that you really don't want out there. So when we sign up for products and services online, we're giving consent to those companies to utilize and sometimes even own our data. What's some other data that you put out into the world?
And as you'll see here, some of these we've talked about. You'll see your personal information, like your name, your address, your social security number. Your medical history is your data, posts and photos on social media, the content in your profile, messages you send on social media, the photos that you put in the cloud, your emails, anytime you've shared your location, your banking information, your credit score. There's a lot of data out there.
Okay, wow, that's a little scary, but there is some good news. There are a lot of ways to protect yourself. And one of those ways is by making sure you set up a PIN or a biometric identifier, like a fingerprint on all your devices. That way, if your device is picked up or stolen, it's safe. And also, how many of you get those annoying nudges to update your operating system on your smartphone? And how many times you just say, remind me later, because you don't feel like doing it right then? We've all been guilty of this before, but you gotta stop putting it off. See, software developers aren't perfect people, and sometimes software vulnerabilities fall through the cracks. Patches and new releases of operating systems often address those vulnerabilities, so your devices stay safer and more secure. Consider installing security software. and keep your Bluetooth and Wi-Fi off whenever possible. And when you're shopping online, ask yourself these questions. Are you on a trusted private Wi-Fi? And is the page secure? You can actually look for the little lock up in the left-hand side of your browser search bar before entering in your credit card information. You can check to see if this URL is HTTPS instead of HTTP. This means that it has an SSL certificate. SSL certificates, which stands for Secure Sockets Layer, is a technology that enables encrypted communication between a web browser and a web server. This can help keep the privacy of your credit card number during a transaction. And the last question to ask yourself is, do you know and trust the vendor? If you're shopping online, make sure you read reviews to see if the company is really legit.
There's also email security. When considering your email, make sure you're only downloading files and attachments from people you trust. You should watch out for spam. If it seems too good to be true, it probably is. Also, don't share sensitive information in email. There are bad actors or people with malicious intent out there who are trying to steal your data. And one way that they do this is through phishing scams.
And what's a phishing scam?
Phishing is the practice of sending emails that appear to be from trusted sources with the goal of gaining personal information or influencing you to do something. This example here is a phishing email. If you get an email from a company that you trust, double check the email address to make sure that it's real. Phishing emails usually carry the tone of urgency, like payment declined, update now, or your account will be deleted forever. Make sure you don't click those links. If you have a real concern about your account being shut down, log into the application you normally do to check it out. The links that are embedded in phishing emails are ways for hackers to get your login information and password so they can exfiltrate your data. So what makes a good password though?
So good passwords have at least 6 characters and include letters, numbers, and special characters. Strange word combinations and words misspelled are also good choices. Once upon a time spelled weird, like in this example, is a great way to throw off hackers. A good rule of thumb is to use capital letters, symbols, and special characters even when they're not required. Remember, if you posted that your cat's name is Mr. Giggles on social media, that's now public information. Don't use any public information about you as your password. And make sure you don't use the same password for every application you have access to. That's a big no-no.
And now we have a question for Lemore. If our participants were to get off the call right now and do one thing to protect themselves, what would you say would be the most impactful way for them to protect their data?
So I think that, to begin with, we've got really good advice here on these past couple of slides, and I do suggest people really take heed of those. If I was to think of one extra thing, would be to have a second factor code or even what's called a multi-factor authentication of everything of value. So never protect an important account with nothing but a password. An important account can be maybe your social media account, your video streaming account, anything that someone can use to impersonate you. And what it means to have a second factor code is whenever that's enabled, to choose to have maybe an SMS sent so that you use a password, but then you also have to give the SMS code. And so if your password got stolen by someone, doesn't matter who it might be and what goal they might have, that second code is going to be very hard for them to obtain. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it makes things a lot more secure.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Lemore.
Lemore. Now let's talk about how you can take control of your data.
So data is what fuels big tech and social media companies, and a lot of us openly share this data. But how is the data collected? And if data is what fuels these big tech companies, is this bad?
Not always. The internet can tell you if your route has lots of traffic because people are consenting to have their data collected. But this can be bad if the right data gets into the wrong hands. Big companies track you constantly. Once you've consented to data collection, they're able to see your movements, your purchases, read your emails, etc.
And lots of data breaches we know are after personal information that can be used to get access to money. But recently, stories have come out about data that can be used to influence or even manipulate society and political opinions.
And so that might sound a bit scary, but the good news is you can take back control of your data. Do this by being aware of when you're giving your consent and understanding how the companies you interact with are using your data. So let's talk about how data is shared. One way data is shared is company to company. One example of this is advertising. Have you ever wondered why ads seem so specific? Many social media companies track your activity and sell your data to third-party companies for advertising. They advertise based on your profile, your age, your gender, your likes, who you follow. Social media companies can put together a pretty detailed profile of you based on your activity and your profile. Beyond those ads being pesky and a little creepy, we can't deny that they sometimes work. Taking control of your data and not letting companies sell your data to third parties means you're less likely to be taken advantage of or potentially influenced through targeted ads.
Another way data is shared is person to company. So we volunteer data to companies to use their services. For example, when we provide bank account details to payment apps so that we can split checks and send money to friends. Make sure you're sending that money to the right person through a service that you trust.
And lastly, we have person to person. Every time we contact a friend, a family member, or a colleague on an internet connected app, we share data. It's best to be aware that these companies, even though they may take security very seriously, aren't foolproof. Try not to say anything that you wouldn't want to one day be public. And the first thing you can do to take back control of your data is to practice consent. And here are a few ways you can do that. You can make sure that you read the terms and conditions. They're long and tedious, but it's important to know what you're signing up for. When in doubt, investigate the company further to see if they're trustworthy. No one's perfect. News stories come out all the time about companies who have data breaches. So use your best judgment, but know that these things happen. You should also look into the privacy settings. When using a new website or app, look into the privacy settings to see what data they're collecting. If something seems unnecessary, you can turn it off. Think about apps you use often that probably know a lot about you. Check your privacy settings there to see how they're using your data. Like if an app asks to use your microphone or location, but it doesn't seem necessary, don't give them the permission. Take the extra second to consider the data you could be consenting to before making your decision. Also review your location settings. These allow companies to see where you are and glean what you're doing, your habits, things like that.
Sorry, one second, my screen froze. Okay. So also you have to be mindful about what you're putting out there. What have you consented to sharing, and how will that be used? Is it from a company that's trustworthy? If it's not, then delete the app. And what responsibility does the company take for securing your data? And are you able to request your data that is being held? And if you need to check, you need to check if you can delete that data as well. So ask how your data will be used as well.
Data gets collected in unexpected places, so make sure you're asking how it's being used. And here you'll see a list of some of the places that it's collected. You'll see it at hospitals, insurance companies, retailers, mobile apps, banking, at work. It's your right to ask how your data is being used in these situations. And now we have another question for Limor. If our participants were to get off the call right now and make one change to take better control of their data, what would you say would be the most impactful thing they can do?
So here again, I think that you provided really good advice. Being careful what we put online and always thinking of the consequences down the road. A lot of times I compare sharing data online to kind of getting a tattoo on your face. It's very permanent, and from there on, it's hard to hide or remove it. Everyone sees it, and you have to really think how that's going to represent you for a very long time down the road. So being careful about that, what are we sharing, how are we sharing it, and also getting stuff from the online world. What are we downloading? We can easily infect our devices with malicious programs that can basically end up sharing our data without us knowing. It can even be applications that are not initially malicious, but just really leak a lot of data about our location and our identity that can later be used to identify us personally, where we live, where we go, all these kind of things. So one active way to monitor these types of things is, when we approve a new application on our device, think first about what kind of permission it's asking for, and if that's even applicable. If it's not, just decline those permissions. And another thing to do is to, I'm sorry, I have a little baby and she is not very happy about cybersecurity today. I think that's because she's been sharing a lot of data online from her iPad. So basically, with app permissions, that's one way to do it. And just to make sure that you also look for other applications that help you see what's being shared on your device without you knowing that it's happening. There's something called Lock Down Your Data. You can go on that website and check out what kind of controls they offer. I put it on my device and I was shocked to understand how much data is being collected on my device. And I can tell you that from the moment that I installed it and stopped the ability to harvest that data without me knowing, a lot of my ability to browse to certain social networks and to search video streaming and stuff like that was kind of blocked. So ever since then, I wasn't able to look at it. And that's just an example of like companies that say, well, if you do not let us harvest your data, then you cannot even reach our websites anymore. So I'd say those are two ways to really control your data a little more.
Thanks, Lamore. That's really helpful. So now that we have a better idea about cybersecurity, let's pass it to Bridget to talk about different careers in cybersecurity.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you, Tara. Today I'll be talking to you about careers and how could your data impact your future. So now that you have a better understanding of what your personal data is and how important it is to secure it, let's now talk about how data can impact your future. So for those of you who are still in middle school or high school, I want you to put on your imagination hat, jump into your time machine, and fast forward to the future where you're now filling out job applications, especially, because it'll be for an awesome cybersecurity job. And as you are filling out the applications, you're constantly seeing a box that requests you to put in all your social media handles and profile names. And you're wondering, why is this necessary? Next slide, please. It is necessary for the employer to see how you handle your personal data and how you carry yourself outside of the interview. Because no matter the size or industry of the business, you will be representing them at all times during the regular business hours and outside of the office. As you have learned, data does not always go away, not even after 10 seconds. Anything you put out there from the time you sign up can always resurface, especially during your career journey. So this is the best time for you to start practicing social media responsibility by asking yourself these 4 questions before you post. Would future me post or share this? What impression does this give of me? Am I giving out too much information? Would a company hire me if they saw this? And most importantly, make your accounts private. One thing I like to remind myself while on any social media is to think for the future and not for the day. So I hope in that moment when that question on your job application comes up, you will be confident in knowing that you have been practicing social media responsibility, protecting your data, and now you're ready for the next chapter. Next slide, please. Today's session was brought to you by IBM's CyberDay4Girls program. This program was created to teach middle school and now high school girls about a career in cybersecurity and how to protect their data in this digital age, because no matter what career you choose, cybersecurity will always be necessary. I will be hosting a booth today from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern time for CyberDay4Girls. So if anyone wants to learn more about this program, please feel free to come visit and stop by and say hello. In conclusion, I want you all to stay curious, set strong passwords, practice social media responsibility, and remember, you can be what you can see. Now let's learn about a few careers that you could be. Thank you to our panelists for being here today. I will ask the questions and our panelists can answer in order of Lamore, Lamore, Richard, and then Tone. If anyone has any questions for our panel, please post them in the chat and I'll be happy to read them all. So let's get started. Lamore, can you describe your own educational background and what you're doing at IBM in your current role? Richard, do you want to go ahead and answer that question first?
Sorry about that. I was muted. If I'm still okay to answer it, I'm good.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lamore.
So my educational background actually came from microbiology, and I started at IBM in a completely different role. I started my career about 11 years ago, and I was just studying the ropes and kind of learning everything about cybersecurity. It took me about 3 to 4 years to really become an expert. By the time I got to IBM, started as a security evangelist, which is a person who advocates for security based on the relevant emerging risks, but without having relation to any specific product that we sell. So that works mainly, that kind of work mainly entails writing articles and speaking at different events, visiting customers to tell them what sort of threats really apply to their business, and overall promoting IBM's ability to research the various attacks and help our customers. Over time, as a speaker and an author, I also started running a special process for IBM to help security researchers publish their work. And along the way, as you may see, I had a baby. And now I'm a woman in security trying to do both things at once.
Amazing. You're doing a great job. Thank you so much, Lamar. Richard, would you like to give a little bit about your background and your current role at IBM?
Sure. So I work building cybersecurity training scenarios that put organizations in the middle of a cyber attack. And we run these scenarios in our cyber range facility up in Boston, which helps immerse the client in the experience even more. These exercises are used to prepare a company for what is most likely going to be a very difficult, very stressful and tiring few days. And like with anything in life, the more you practice, the better you get at it. And that's why my team and I develop these scenarios.
Thank you, Richard. Tone?
I work with Richard, and I'm an integration engineer. And basically what my job is to work in conjunction with Richard and the other teams to find different ways to make the different applications kind of work well together in the scenarios that we create. So that's my everyday challenge. Educational background, kind of quirky. Started off in the music business for a very long time, and then after that, I decided to go back to college. Got a couple bachelor degrees, a couple associate's degrees, and then I landed a job in technical support and doing network security, and then kind of funneled my way from there to QA, and then found my way on my current team.
Thanks, Tone. And
Yep.
as everyone can see from the panel today, that it doesn't really matter what your background is, because as they can see, cybersecurity is everywhere, and the path that you take doesn't always really determine where you're going to end up at. And so, thank you all for sharing such a diverse background. Lamar, I wanted to ask you, what was the app that you used to lock down your data? It seems as is a pretty hot topic in the chat right now.
Okay, let me just go on my phone so I can make sure I'm not messing this up. It's an application that I saw exists for iPhone and for other, it's called Lockdown. It's simply called Lockdown. And, beyond this application, there is also a lot of content on just, Google trying to find out how we can lock down our data in other various ways besides just getting this application.
Thank you. There seems to be another question in the chat here that's asking, what's the best way to protect our older relatives, as in like our grandparents?
Was that for me as well?
It can be for you or anyone else. Tone or Richard, if you have anything you want to add to it.
I can answer it. My mother is, one of the challenges I kind of talked to my mother about in as she's embracing technology and has a smartphone and all that, really is try to keep things very simple. If you don't understand something, don't click on it. And if you want to, or if you want to kind of mess with something, ask questions. There's no such thing as a bad question, a bad question when you want to educate yourself. Knowing that you can't click on everything that you see on the internet, on your screen or on your phone is always good. So keeping things very simple, showing her apps that I use, that I trust, that my siblings use and trust is always a good thing, and it's very important to have a point of reference, I feel, for older people.
Thank
So
you.
I have another piece of that to kind of talk about, one thing that I've been seeing a lot not only with parents and older people, but they're the main target of this, is the fake tech support schemes that call them up and somebody tells them that they are calling them from Microsoft and that
Yep.
there's something on their computer
Mm-hmm.
and they want to, help them and whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
it's amazingly crazy how many people fall for that. So I think that awareness is very big on this subject. I keep talking to my family about it, even though they are actually very annoying. They keep saying they have nothing to hide, and then I have to find various examples that make them understand that privacy is important and cybersecurity is important, because they have maybe not something to hide, but something to protect. And awareness is a big thing, and also always encourage them to come to you if something seems off, if something seems like it doesn't make sense to them, or that's the first time they got this really weird call, to
Mm-hmm.
tell the person that they're going to call them back and call you and figure out what's going on. And I just recently had this with a family member as well. And for those who tell you, I don't have anything to hide, for example, my brother, I said, oh yeah, so how about if you came into the office tomorrow and one of your colleagues had your wife's picture in a bathing suit from Facebook on his computer screen? Would you be cool with that? And he, of course, was not cool with that. And I said, that's where privacy comes in. And that's why you need to control what you share and who can access it. So those are just a couple of more examples here.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's funny you say that. I think even within the last week, my mother alone, and even myself on my landline at my house, we get the fraudulent Apple support calls. Think about it. And my wife works for Apple, so it's really funny. And those scams about technical support and everything are quite real, and they really try to play on the ignorance of our parents and senior citizens alike. So again, having a point of reference and contact and communication that you can talk to them, that they can come to you, or you can go to them and just be like, well, how are things going with your device and stuff like that, I think is a very good thing.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Tone, and thank you, Lamore. Richard, I want to ask you this question. What is the favorite part about your job?
Favorite part about my job? I suppose watching people go through the training exercises is probably the best. Watching, the stress levels rise, watching them try to adapt, trying to regroup, someone taking control of the situation, building a plan and executing the plan. It's very fulfilling watching people get better at something. And I really enjoy building the exercises that test people and help them grow.
Sounds like a cool job. Tone, what's the favorite part about your job?
I think the favorite part from my job actually might be just the learning aspect, not knowing what today will bring, and the complex challenges that my job entails.
Sounds ever-changing and awesome. And the continuous learning is a great part to touch on within the cybersecurity field. As the threat landscape changes, we have to evolve as well, just as the hackers and the bad actors are as well. Lamore, do you want to tell a little bit about the favorite part of your job?
My favorite part is that I see cybersecurity as not only a job. I see it as part of my calling, and I think that people in this field actually change the world and make it better and safer for others, for individuals, for grandparents, for companies that develop important technologies, for nations that have to fend off attacks from hostile countries, and for just humanity that can really face a lot of risk from cyberkinetic attacks, stuff that will, for example, target a nuclear facility and could cause massive loss of life. So these are the people that work behind the scenes, and I think that the feeling of actually making a difference is a very big driver for happiness and feeling that this is a great job to be in.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Following your passion is something that, that's something that resonates with me. I started out as a political science major in college. And then, I quickly realized that my passion was more in technology. And then I switched to, without even knowing what I was doing, into a information security assurance role. And then from there, it was, as Tone said, the continuous learning is out there. As Richard has touched on, getting to see people, how they can react in different situations and be under that pressure. It's amazing to see that when you follow your passion, it's not really a job anymore. just like you said, it becomes a part of you. And so with that, I wanted to ask you, if you could go back to your middle school or, high school self, what advice would you give yourself?
Funny enough, I would tell myself to get into this field a lot sooner. If in hindsight, it's a place where I could really use a lot of my talents, and I wish I had started it earlier before, studying a lot of things that I did like and accumulate a lot of knowledge, but I didn't end up doing later on. So I would definitely have said that. And that, yeah, I don't have other things, because I was a pretty serious student all along, so I can't say to myself, other kind of like stay in school or whatever. But I think that if anybody is thinking of dropping off a program because they're not happy with it, that perhaps considering looking at other programs, looking at newer stuff, looking into cybersecurity programs around there where they live or where they go to school would be also good advice.
Awesome. Thanks, Lamore. Richard, do you have any advice for your middle school or high school self?
So I had a really bad haircut in school, so that would be priority number one. Once I'd fixed that, then I might move on to something else. Probably I tell myself to do even more outside of my day-to-day. So like make an app, make a website, not necessarily to make money, but to learn something new. Can I reprogram a drone? How does AI work? Can I write an algorithm? Maybe it's too difficult. Okay, start smaller. I'd get things into GitHub. I'd make a portfolio of projects. When I interview graduates for a job, I always look out for what people have done outside of their day-to-day, because these are the people with a genuine passion for the subject. And so the more things you can show there, the more things going to help you get a job or even get a better job.
Awesome. Thank you, Richard. Tim, what about you?
Unlike Richard, I had a good haircut in high school, so I think I'm good in that capacity. But I do kind of want to take the coattails off of Richard is about the word passion and how important passion is. And with that, it's important for kids at a very young age, as they're learning themselves, to really take the time to learn themselves, to understand what they like and what they don't like. And often in the journey of life, one of the first things that you will really realize is what you don't like. So in realizing, that's a lesson in itself. So the more things that you realize that you don't like, your beam and your scope of life can start to narrow a bit more. And then you can start to focus on the things that you really do like. And with that said, take time to get to know who you are. I think I can't emphasize that enough. A lot of times we see the masses and the crowd and we want to follow others. And I really think it's important that each person in their own right take time to get to learn themselves, their strengths, their weaknesses, understand what their passions are, and develop those passions as they, as early as they can in life.
Thank you, Tone. And for someone like me who is just starting out into this field, I can remember still being in high school and in middle school and having the bad braces and, getting the colors in them. So that was a terrible idea. But, as you have all said, passion, finding out who you are and doing, some projects outside of school. So I know that everyone has a lot of homework going into it, but, doing something on the outside, to me, that's something that's fun. That's something for you to, learn and get a passion about. And just to know that, whatever you do, you can be anything you want to be. You don't have to limit yourself to just one career for any kind of reason. Go out there, get your feet wet, get, internships, ask your parents, hey, I might be interested in this sort of job. Do you know anyone that's in this field that I could talk to? Just starting out as early as possible, because there are so many different things that you can be, and so it's just trying to figure out, narrowing that down. But within cybersecurity, you can really, take that job role and then evolve it into many different roles. And with that comes a question from Twitter here asking, for someone who has no background in IT or computer science as an undergrad, how can one get into this field, especially as a career?
Is that for anyone in particular, or?
Yeah. Anyone, feel free to answer, anyone.
So the first thing I would do is find something you want to learn more about. Security is quite broad. I mean, do you want to do research? Do you want to find out about threat hunting? Do you want to learn about training? Find something you think you will enjoy and build a project around it. Like I was talking about earlier, find videos on YouTube or blogs of other people who have done something similar and use what they've learned to teach yourself and build something a little bit bigger or a little bit different. everything gets so much easier when you're working on something you actually enjoy and you have a passion for, and you'd be surprised how fast you learn, and just build up a portfolio of those projects. I'm not the biggest fan of going to college every time you want to learn something new. I think there's better ways to do it than that. Having a college degree obviously helps, but lots of little projects show that you're a capable person, that you can teach yourself, and that there's nothing beyond your learning. I think will go a long way into getting into a career in cybersecurity.
I want to just pick up, there's a term my father taught me, and he said, fail early, fail often. And there's nothing wrong with failing, because you learn more in failure than you ever do in success. And I think, just like Richard said, there are so many, having a degree is very important in life, and it's one of those things that can help you get to the next level. But self-education, and in today's world where there's so many different resources that young men and women can use to educate themselves, like Udemy or Coursera, or just simply going to YouTube and typing, hey, I want to learn about blah, 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 blah. And 9 times out of 10, there's going to be a video out there. Now, you might have to sift through the different videos to figure out which one is a quality, or which person who's having the video conveys that information that can teach you in a way that's acceptable and good for you. But there are so many different websites that are free that you can use to educate yourself, and like Richard said, create your self portfolio, to create different projects, to develop your passion. And the traditional route is a good route, but there's so many other routes that you can use and take advantage of that won't cost you money, but it will cost you time, that you can use to strengthen your educational platform and enrich your knowledge.
If I may add something small to this conversation, I'd like to say I'm a big proponent of relying on your natural abilities and things you like doing. So, look at what you like doing now, I call it what you would do for free, and try to make that the first pillar of how you choose your future career. Because the more you like what you do, and more you're connected to it, the easier it becomes, the faster you'll learn about it, and your life will not be like about a job you don't enjoy. So, for example, one of the biggest things I used to do as a child from very early on, I was always writing things. I was writing poems, I was writing stories as soon as I could write. And this was something so natural and innate to my character. And now I use it extensively in my work, and it's the best part of my work as far as I'm concerned. So also kind of look at where you're inclined. Maybe you're really, really good in math. Maybe you're good in other things. And that can give you a direction of where you want to go, whether it be in cybersecurity or anything else, but it's definitely an indication of where you want to turn.
If I could actually add real fast, I resonate a lot with that as a designer who helps build cybersecurity tools for people like you all who work in cybersecurity. My background's in graphic design and fine art and printmaking and things that aren't related at all. So I think there are so many options within cybersecurity, and I love your point, Lamore, about just finding something that you're passionate about, and Tone, the idea of you can teach yourself and you can find a path, and the paths we take to get here are so different. So yeah, I really appreciated that.
One other thing is that I'd like to add is something that really helped me is finding a mentor or a role model, somebody that you can look up to and ask questions to, and maybe even try to job shadow. I mean, that's just great to understand what the field is about and what you'd be getting into and what are the requirements.
Hi, Bridget. It's Heather. I'm not one of your official panelists here today, but if I may jump in, because I get asked this question a lot as academic outreach leader for IBM Security. And so kind of adding on to what Tara just said about finding a mentor, I would say simply find people who are working in the industry, get to know them, start building your network. And there are so many ways to do that. Look for local meetups, many of which are happening virtually right now, just like this conference. And speaking of conferences, start attending conferences if you have the means. Right now, we are no longer limited by travel dollars and geographic boundaries, because conferences like CyberXchange are happening virtually. And another great thing you can do is find organizations to participate in and get to know members of organizations like ISC Squared and Women in Cybersecurity, or WESIS, Women in Security and Privacy, and the list goes on. And many of those are represented here today and tomorrow at CyberXchange. I know, for example, that WESIS, like IBM, has a booth over in the exhibit hall. So I encourage everybody to go visit the exhibit hall and ask questions of the organizations that are represented there.
Thank you, Heather. And I'll just chime in as well and just say, for anyone who's wanting to, just get a basic understanding of what's out there, in the cybersecurity field or in any sort of, STEM field, the first thing I did when I, changed my major, I had no idea what careers were out there. I simply went to like Indeed or like, Google and just typed in cybersecurity technical jobs or, anything in like a technical field. And I just started reading job postings and realizing and looking and seeing what kind of skills that are required, and I started seeing like common themes around certain tracks of jobs. If you want to be like a software engineer, you need to understand what these programming languages are. If you want to be, more cybersecurity business related, kind of look at, policies, procedures. And so, it was just simply going through it and just kind of listing out what kind of, job and what things interested me is how I started figuring out, where I wanted to lead next. And that's kind of where I started picking up on different classes and then different internships. And, internships to me are the best way to get the experience, because you can go in there, ask the questions, get the hands-on experience, and then you can either make the decision of, no, I want to move towards something else, or you might get in there and see that there, something else sparks your brain and so you can see, oh, this is another great opportunity and I want to try it out. So, the theme of all this is, just protect yourself online, understand that, it's your data, so you need to be in control of it. And know that, just follow your passion. And, I wanted to close it out and ask if any of our panelists wanted to, have any final remarks as we, move on to the next sessions.
I'd like to say that I would like to encourage and challenge every person that came on the line and thank them for their time, and challenge yourself to be the best you can be each and every day. Question yourself, what can you do today to make yourself a better person? What do you can do today to increase your passion, to increase your knowledge, and to push yourself, because once today is gone, you can't get it back. Time is a commodity that is very short when you really think about it, but take advantage of the time and push yourself every day to be the best that you can be.
I don't think you can beat that.
Richard, you can. You always beat me.
No, I mean, that's the right sentiment. And absolutely, I think find something you're passionate about, build projects, store your projects online, and make sure you can share them to prove how good you are and how good you are at learning and how passionate you are about a subject. And that'll help you find the career that you'll be truly happy in.
I think you summed it up, my friend.
Awesome. Lamore, did you want to add anything?
So wanted to thank everyone on this session. I mean, just attending it already means that, someone is trying to learn more, is going to dedicate time to doing that and to joining these kind of sessions. And like Heather was saying, we're not bound by boundaries anymore. There's a lot of stuff happening online, and there are a lot of free courses and things like that. If you have a passion, if you want to have something completely different and interesting in your future career, now is the time to start. We need a lot of experts in this field, and if you start now, you'll be in a completely different place 5 years down the line. So, and that, that goes for everyone. That goes for even teachers and parents on this session, as it goes for students and anyone at any age. If you start now becoming very versed in something that interests you, you'll be in a completely different place 5 years down the line. And again, we need a lot of help in this field. So thank you again for attending today's session.
Thank you, Lamore, and thank you to all of our panelists and Tara and Derek for being our guides. And thank you to everyone who tuned in today. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day and are able to catch all the sessions that you like. So thank you, everyone.